Hello guys, in this video we're going to see a build overview about my Lightning Arrow Deadeye Magic Find. So first of all, why Magic Find? Well, the answer is pretty simple. If you want to see more divines or available cards in your maps, then that's the way. Then what should you expect from my MF builds? Well, my main objective is that these builds can farm D16 maps with a single layer of delirium, and while using in the 8+3 the top hat and the influence keystone, that makes this content harder. So as long as I can do that, I'm happy with the results, because that is the kind of the grind that I do for the divination cards and such. So yeah, you shouldn't be expecting a bossing build to do, for example, Mayben, to do Cyrus and all like that kind of stuff. And then the final straw is that I only care for quant. The builds that I do won't be focusing in the rarity aspect. I only want to drop more stuff. In the past league, I had an EK Magic Find character that had 50-ish quant, and the results that I was getting was that I was getting an apothecary in less than 100 maps. I did some videos about that, so I think that getting a respectable amount of quant is the best. So about the costs, the build we're going to see in the video cost me around 10 divines. I will show you some captures here with some of the trades I made, and that could be even cheaper, to be fair. For example, if you don't get the inspiration learning jewel, it will drop to divines, and if you don't try to push the quant modifier to the limit, and in the end those minimal extra quant, the 1 or 2%, won't make a big difference, and in the worst case scenario you can then buy better vendors, just taking into consideration that it could be way cheaper than 10 divines. So about the build, I created from scratch, obviously having as reference the normal version, some from the guys in POE Ninja, and then I added the MF gear and fixing all the other stuff, for example the stats, the defense, and the damage itself. And I got to a good point that then I translated that to the main game itself. I bought the items and I tried the build, and this is why I'm creating this video, because I think I did get to a good result. So the elevator pitch for this build is that it is an elemental attack and ranged build that uses a bow as a main hand, and its main defenses is the evasion for attacks and basically spell suppression for the spells. So say that disclaimer, I'm totally sure that this can be improved even further by other players by taking a second look. Okay, let's jump into the POE. This is my current character in game, and I'm going to show you the general stats. So for example, the damage here that we are having is 1.6 million, and remember that all the investment that I did was close to 10 divine for the full character. I respected my old Venom Gyre to create this. And yeah, so the damage 1.6 million. This is having some of the stuff configured here, and this is not taking into consideration the shock. This is 50%, since Lightning Arrow has some interactions, and I always get the 50% in any mob. I don't know for big bosses actually, but for the stuff that we care, it's 50 always. So we have 2 million damage, and this is already more than enough for all the content that we want to run. Then for the defenses, like I said, this is an evasion build, and we are actually evading almost 80% of the attacks, and we have this spell suppression capped. It's not 100, but it's 99. You can add actually a point here and cap it all. I personally don't mind having it as 99. Then the build has more than 3.5k life, and it has a total of 23 effective life pool. This is I would say this is decent, and again, this is enough for the content that we want to run. you won't be dying like multiple times per map, and that's all that we care. And even if you want some more effective life pool, I didn't try this, and maybe this is pretty bad, but you can spec into the wind ward, and that will give you almost half the amount of effective life pool extra. Then another thing to mention is the crit chance. This is a crit build that scales it with crit multiplier, and we have 70% of crit chance. This is pretty high. I think that, yeah, we have the flask on, but yeah, the flask are going to have an uptime through the whole map. I don't have a jewel here. I did not yet decide if I want to try the interrogation jewel. So yeah, you can add another jewel like this, for example. And like I briefly mentioned, we are using one spiral learning. In practice, I did try this, and I'm not feeling that it's doing much. It's honestly way behind a headhunter, as you would expect, but this did let me down a bit. This was 2 divines, so instead of this, you could have another jewel fork with some extra damage, attack speed, or life. And one last thing to mention is the MF part, right? We have 48 quantity in our gear, since we are using 2 Ventors, the golden boots, and the Salimas gloves. So we have 48 in total. And yeah, just as a note, we have 55 increased rarity. Okay, so now let's talk about the gear. I will add here in the screen somewhere the total prices of all the items that I got from the market literally yesterday. Yesterday, the day that I am recording this, maybe it's 2 or 3 days before you see the video. So starting with the bow, what we want here is the base elemental damage. As you can see, the add flat damage to fire damage and add damage to lightning damage, and we want to have also the add damage to cold damage, and we also want some crit chance, so we have a better base. As you can see, the base crit for this bow is 7.42, and then all the increased crit chance will scale based on that base. So yeah, and some attack speed if we can manage to get one. We want at least 1.5. Then for the quiver, we want basically more crit chance. We always want both attacks, fires, and additional arrow. And yeah, some life, so we have burst survivability, and I have here some attack speed. I would also recommend the bow with the pierce for a better clearing for the Lightning Arrow. And yeah, here as you can see, I also have a mod with flat damage. Then I decided to use the Blizzard Crown, so we have the implicit that it adds even more base damage. And in this case, I needed a Blizzard with a high intelligence mod. As you can see, we are starving a bit of strength and intelligence, and I don't want to be using the 3 points to cap them out. So I needed a high mod here. I needed some spell suppression, and I wanted some life too. So that's all about that I needed with this helmet. And you can craft this using the Loath something, that's an essence that assures you the intelligence mod, and you have to get the other 2. I would start with the spell suppression and maybe craft life, and that would be more than enough. Then the amulet, the most important thing here is allocating the vengeance cascade. That's the reward node that makes your projectiles, in this case from the Lightning Arrow, to bounce back. So you're doing basically more damage based on that. And as we are going to see later on with Ascendancy, the more distance that the projectiles travel, more damage they are going to be dealing. So that's mandatory for this build. And as you might have already seen, all our bow builds are already using this anoint. And the rest is basically life and damage stuff. You can feed wherever you can here. We have some flat damage, some crit chance. You can also have the crit multi chance here, and have also found one with some increased effect for the non-damaging ailments. This is basically for the shock and for the chill. I would suggest you to have an amulet, for example the Egita one with strength and intelligence. I got this one that has all of them, so this is good enough. Then for a chest, I went for a rare chest. Since we are an evasion build, we want an only evasion base. As you can see, this has 1800 evasions, so that's a really high number. And in the chest we want some resistance, so we ease out the job of capping the resistance, a high tier life, and some spell suppression to cap them out. And that's basically it. I drew some Eldritch currency and I got whatever I was pleased with. I got here the Grace or effect and the damage taken recouped as life. Then for the belt, this is the same one that I was using for the Venom Gyre. This has strength, life, and resistances, and not much else. And the jewel here, it has basically to have more damage. I will teach you later on how to find these jewels quite easily. And for the Magic Find gear, I have two vendors here. One has the 10 increased quantity. This cost me 1 divine the other day. And this one has 8. It has a bit less since I needed some exact resistances to cap them out. So yeah, as you can see, I'm not caring about the rarity. This was 20 out of 40 and this is 10 out of 40. Then the Sarima's Touch. Since this is a common drop, you can expect to get a good Sarimas with max quant and a good implicit modifier. In this case, I got the one with attack speed. This is pretty good for a build. And you can also, I saw another one that was interesting. It was the spell suppression one. So yeah, take that into consideration. The same for the boots. I got here the gold rims are another common unique that a lot of people corrupt them. And yeah, you can get them really cheap. In this case, I got with the increased maximum life percentage. You can also get the ones, the one that increased the movement speed to outset the 10% base that this boot has, but that in particular is pretty expensive. So yeah, the other one was the one that has some spell suppression, so you lower the pressure in the gear itself, in the chest, in the tree, and in the helmet. So yeah, that's also a good option. And finally, the cluster jewel that we are taking a look at it later on with the tree. I basically took a look at all the mods that you can have in the cluster and selected the 3 ones that I think that are the best. As you can see, I don't have the full fight. That's a pretty common node in all the attack builds. That's because I don't think that the leech is doing much in this build. I like more the kind of stuff that's instant, like the instant leeching or the gain on hit or the recover on kill that we do have in this build. So I opted out the leech one for other options that we're going to see later on what these options are. Then for the skill sets, this is the same setup as the normal Lightning Arrow version. So we have the Lightning Arrow, the Trinity that's mandatory for any more than one elemental skill attack, and the inspiration for less mana, the damage to increase damage, to increase crit, and the Mirage Archer that copycats or skill. Then I have here the Immortal Call with the cast when damage taken. This is pretty good to have a better survivability while mapping. The precision, that's awesome for the accuracy. The mark on hit, this is mandatory for any attack, any projectile build basically. Then we have the new Mana Forge Arrow support. This is pretty good too because we're getting frenzy charges and power charges just with this setup. So that's pretty good. And since we are an evasion build, we are obviously using Grace. And for the movement, I'm using Frost Blink and also the other skill, the Blink Arrow. So I'm chaining them both since they don't share the cooldown. Blood Rage obviously for attack speed, and Anger for the damage order basically. And yeah, that's it for the skills. Then for Ascendancy, it's Deadeye. Deadeye offers basic tool set that you can get anywhere else, just like that, with some cheap gear. I was actually considering using the Raider. Is actually my favorite Ascendancy, but the stuff that I see here I can get elsewhere, especially with the kind of investment that we are doing here with 5 to 10 divines. We can get we can prescient from the elemental ailments. We are capped we have a capped spell suppression, and we can get onslaught from a timeless jewel. So yeah, I think that Deadeye is the right choice here. So first of all, the Gare Winds that gives us the classic Tailwind. This is amazing for anyone that has tried in the past. The Tailwind is just a mechanic that is so good for the Zoom Zoom playstyle that we're looking here. Then the focal points to make our marks stronger and have a better curse, since our marks are our curses, making an analogy with the spellcasters. And the most strongest point here are the far shots that gives us the far shot mechanic, making our projectiles to hit harder when they travel a higher distance. And since we are using the Vengeance Cascade Anointment here, this makes our projectiles to return to us, so that the travel distance is way higher, and we can take full advantage of this node. And finally, one of the best nodes in this Ascendancy is the Endless Munitions, that gives all of our attacks in general with projectiles to have 2 additional projectiles. And this will be pretty good with the reward that the bows had this leak in the tree, because now we can have 2 projectiles aside from the natural one. So we have 3, and then we get the Master Fletcher for additional. So now we have 4, and we also have another projectile here for any attack build. So we have 5 in total, and a 6th one from the QUIVER. Okay, so for a 3, my current character is 94, and I'm getting all this stuff to cap out my spell suppression chance, because I value that a lot. So for survivability while mapping, so I have here some points for the spell suppression here and here. This even gives us an extra suppression amount, so we are actually suppressing 53% of the spells. Then we have life here. Here we have this full wheel is pretty good for survivability. As you can see, we have 23 effective life pool, and if I remove this, we lose 3000, because we have much less life and much less evasion. So we go from 78 to 74. This is a lot, considering this is already a high amount. Then we have some extra life here, and also the recover and kill that I think is amazing. Some leech with the instant leech make new mastery, and some accuracy here, more life here, more damage for the bows, more critical. This is more general stuff for bows. I'm using here the thing that translates our speed or modifiers for the speed for our projectiles to also affect the damage. This is pretty similar with the mod that. Then we are scaling a bit more the projectile speed, since the Vengeance Cascade also scales the projectile speed. And I really like, also for survivability, mechanically speaking, that our projectiles are fast, because we get them faster. We can outscreen them way easier. And also consider that having a higher projectile speed, it also interacts better with the returning mechanic, since now the projectile will travel double its distance. So yeah, this is actually feels pretty good in practice. And I went in the top here for the mana mastery, since we have now again the mana reservation efficiency for skills, and we can fit all of our auras, and at the same time having a good remaining mana for casting or Lightning Arrow. And finally, for the cluster, these are the nodes that I personally selected for this case. And here we're scaling mainly the increased damage and the effect for the non-damaging ailments. And then I found this node that I didn't see anywhere else. This is the arcing shot. And this scales pretty good with the far shot, since it takes into consideration the travel distance that the projectile has, and that makes us to scale or damage further, and also the crit chance. So I really like this node, so this is why I selected these three nodes: the martial powers, the calamitous, and the arcing shot. And the martial powers, this is a very popular node that offers a lot of stuff and is kind of mandatory in these kind of clusters. It gives us some attack damage increase, some attack speed, accuracy, and even more damage with the ailments that we don't use in this case. But yeah, it's an all-around node basically. And then one thing that I mentioned is that I was going to show later on in the video was how to search for good jewels. And in this case, we are in POE and we can click here for a trade for these items. And as you can see, I have a socket number 3 here that's empty. And if I click here, find the best, and I can even configure the parameters. So for example, if I want a jewel that only gives me full damage, I set the effective life pool to be 0, so it won't be taken into consideration when doing the search. So as you can see, the only one that's here is the damage. We save that. Okay, so now if we press the find best in this socket that I have empty here, we can say, for example, I want an abyss jewel with a max of, I want to pay the max amount is 40 chaos, let's say. Oops, 40 chaos, and we execute the search. And as you can see, this feature search some of the stuff that you can get, and it creates a search with that, and it says that the best jewels for the configuration that we are here, that's damage, cost 29 chaos. And as you can see, it basically has some attack speed. If you have the critical, since we have a high crit chance, this is pretty good. This will be active basically always. And it is triple damage jewel for base damage, and this is basically awesome to have, because here you know that what scales best. The next thing that scales best here in this case is the base damage. It could be, for example, more attack speed, or it could be to, for example, increase damage or more damage if we can get from jewels. So yeah, this is awesome, and I would totally recommend for the jewels, and you can also use them for other stuff. I only use for the jewels itself because there are so many mods that this simplifies all of that. And you can even whisper, copying the message here. And you have the other options too, if you want to find orders that are cheaper. For example, this is for 5 chaos. Yeah, and as you can see, we have here 1.6 million, and if I set this jewel that was 29 chaos, we get more than 100k more damage. So this is insane. And one last thing to mention is that I'm going to leave the shopping list that I use for getting all of this gear in the video's description. So for example, if you want to search for the bow, this is the search I used with trying to get a bow with at least 900 elemental DPS, 7 crit chance, base crit chance, and some of the attack speed. So if we search here, you have one for 3 divines, another for 4 divines. These ones are pretty good actually, better than the ones I am using. This has more over than 1k of damage, and this one has almost 1k for 3 divines. This is pretty good. And we have other options that are even better with more attack speed, a bit more attack speed, and sorry, crit chance. And yeah, you can even lower this if you have a let's say a tighter budget, and you can find one for 1 divine. That's also pretty good. We'll have a build of damage, but it will be completely fine. There's also the searches for the magnifying gear. And yeah, that's it for the video. I think I showed everything that is key for the build, and I will be creating more content about using the magic find and showing you the results and having, let's say, strategies that are pushing even further the use of the magic find. And yeah, like Chris said, let's get your magic find characters ready, and bye guys.